Some of it like epic level shit, like the stuff of novels.
That's Joyeeta Das, serial entrepreneur and currently building Samudra Oceans. Her goal is to make a massive difference to the future of this planet.
Turning a piece of seabed into something that absorbs carbon, produces jobs for Tier 3 towns, and increases the value of the asset, and actually produces returns for the financiers. I just couldn't have asked for a better solution.
Her experience and her team makes this possible.
Like, I'll give you all the training, I'll give you all the books, I'll work with you, but I need you to have a low ego. If you start by saying I know stuff, all this effort is wasted. You're not going to learn.
She's also deeply reflective on the journey of an entrepreneur.
So I think we have to really internalize that. Most founders are deeply broken people, and happiness is like the flower that blooms if the rest of it is right. It's a bit like you cannot pull the flower out of the soil.
Hear her story and all the lessons for founders.
Choose happiness above everything else, and that's the source of everything I do. I wanted to be an astronaut. It's crazy, but yeah, astronaut, scientisty person who's on board some kind of a ship in the sky kind of thing. Yeah.
Did you try and work towards that?
I did work towards that quite a bit. It didn't work out for various reasons, political and financial. When I say political, really. And financial. And then eventually ended up working in space quite a bit. So I did get my, I guess, fantasy fulfilled to some extent.
And was the idea ever you wanted to start building your own stuff someday, or was it not really on the horizon when you were a child?
What I'm doing now?
Would just any being an entrepreneur at all?
No, not even close. Never saw myself as an entrepreneur, never thought I'll be an entrepreneur. And to be honest, even when I accidentally became an entrepreneur, I tried to run from it multiple times. Actually, it caught up with me, but I was always running from it. There was no great plan to be it. But now I've fully embraced it, and I see how I've always been an entrepreneur without realizing it.
What were some of the early ideas you played around with on the side while you had your other jobs going on?
I still think about a few ideas that I've really, really wanted to do, and probably will try still at some point. So one is always been, it's a wildly different idea. And I know a lot of people might think like, why is this even an area I should get into? What makes me uniquely qualified? Probably nothing, except I've thought about it forever. It's delivery. So how people come and they're not able to find you, or you're not at home, you want to leave stuff from someone. And if you don't have concierge, since human labor is not necessarily available in the Western world, I wanted to create this smart box that just accepts stuff but doesn't allow anyone to take from you. And you have an OTP that only you can release for anyone who wants to access that box. It just literally makes your house a pick up and drop center. I've always wanted to make it. I almost suggested it in my MBA as a project. And I still think that there is something to it. Someone should do it. I've also looked at a wildly crazy idea of culture. So how do, because I'm obviously an immigrant and there are lots of people like me, I always wonder, how do you get people to experience a slice of your culture without necessarily transporting them in a flight to your home and adding to the carbon footprint? And I thought the few things that get people to experience other people's culture, one is very popular food. The other, I think, is bath. I think bathing as a ritual is very different in different cultures. And I thought that if you could have some sort of a bathing spa with different country rooms earmarked, with people from there giving you that experience, it's as intimate as food. You get to experience what it's like a Moroccan bath or a Kerala massage or a Turkish hammam, or like in the same building. So you just choose which country you want to bathe in today. So I have all sorts of wild ideas, almost one every few months, but thankfully I've not pursued any of them.
What was the first one you pursued? Because obviously you're a 5-time founder, right?
Yeah.
What was that very first one you consider as like the real start of your journey there?
I think the very first one that I pursued completely on my own was a nonprofit. The idea was, how can you raise money in a philanthropic way for people who are stuck in international borders, especially women and children, and do that in a way that is very scalable? So I thought that all the big Fortune 500 companies I worked with, they all had a concept of day of service or sending their employees for some sort of a work or help or things like that. And I thought if I could weave bespoke projects in each region where these people can come and do a couple of days of service, then their skill sets would contribute towards making a project. And that project could actually heal somebody in that region. So let's say if a lot of women are stuck in a particular border and they don't have identity cards, maybe a bunch of employees from a tech company can make a 3D printer on the spot for 4 days. It's a great team bonding activity for them. The company pays for it. It's a great activity. And then, these people have an actual problem solved. So I did that for a bit, and then I got absorbed in a government organization. So my very first idea was, how do you actually create some sort of an impact or a social justice? So I guess at my heart, I've always been very obsessed with, as they say, ESG. Maybe that's the right word, or UNSDG without knowing it. I don't know.
So obviously, making an impact there is great. But many people think about making that kind of impact, but they don't actually do it, right? So what do you think pushed you to okay, this is a problem I care about. I'm going to go and do something about it. What do you think gave you that drive to do it?
I think a strong bias towards doing as a personality wasn't my thing. Until I was, so say, 23, 24, I was a very, very not biased towards doing, more towards thinking type of person. I would think and discuss. I had great ideas. I'd tell my friends at dinners, but like most people, I went home and forgot about it, or talked about it occasionally, but never did it. I think the whole bias to action happened when I spent a couple of years at the bottom of a depression. I started seeking a lot of spirituality, and I had just come out of a huge personal tragedy that had pushed me into depression. And I started really questioning life. What does it mean? And what are we supposed to do? Where is it all headed? All the big questions. And I found that to me, and I'm not saying this is the right philosophy, but I thought that the answer I came up with is that it's a bit like a video game. We are playing with a limited resource on this planet, and that's time. And the only way to optimize time is to go do it. Because even if you make mistakes, you can then come back and iterate. Whereas if you keep thinking, the one resource you've not optimized is time. Do you have to think a bit to be best prepared for something? Sure. But do you have to overthink it or think it so much that you never did it? No. Because I think time is the one thing we are playing with. It's the one slice that will never come back. Every year, we only have less time. If you believe in the concept of, they have this concept in Buddhism, but also in Hinduism, that you have fixed number of breaths. And that's why tortoises that breathe once a minute, they live up to 100 years. Dogs that breathe much faster, they live 17 years. So the faster you breathe, the less you live. So if the number of breaths is constant, you're always every year getting close to the last number. Morbid thought, but that should tell us that what are you waiting for? If you think this needs to be done, just jump in and do it.
I can't remember who said this, but I'm guessing, have you read 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burton? I think you might enjoy that. So there's the idea of the next good thing you can do, right? And rather than thinking what's the best thing I can ever do, so if you just think about what's the next good thing you can do, you'll probably end up doing quite a few good things in your life, I hope.
Absolutely.
And once you've taken that philosophy, and obviously you're able to then make an impact, you stimulate it into the government, would that then give you the momentum to think, wow, I tried to do something and it worked. And did that give you the confidence to keep going and to try other stuff too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I totally agree. Perhaps, I guess it's like Picasso said, in order to know where you're going to draw, you have to start drawing, is what Picasso said. How do you even know what you want to do if you don't start exploring what you're doing? A lot of people have this romanticized idea of you'll be walking down the street and the perfect thing will land upon your head. It never does, You don't walk down the street and suddenly find the most perfect solution to your life's problems or the world's problems. You start by something, you get exposed to different problem spaces, you meet new people, you find another one, maybe you succeed or fail in this one, you move to the next one. It's an unending story. But there's no way to figure it all out in your couch or on your desk without having ever tried it once.
So what was the next good thing for you? What was number 2 company?
After this, so this was actually 2 already. The one before this was the one which I didn't spearhead, but I was one of the co-founders, and it was a algorithmic / AI type of company. And then it was this one. This is the one that I spearheaded completely on my own. And then after that was Gyana, which happened in UK. I came here to get my master's at Oxford and ended up making that. It was an AI company in 2014, 2015, before it became really sexy to do so.
Trendsetter.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, at that time, I thought that was the top trend already. People DeepMind had just gotten acquired. Magic Pony was in huge rounds. Basically, for me, I thought that was the peak, but apparently I was wrong. There was more to come. And now, obviously, it is the thing to do. But when I started, I thought it was the obvious next thing to do. And I famously remember saying this, that I think my co-founder at the time, David, mentioned in a few meetings everywhere. I never thought AI is this big, special, shiny orb sitting in the middle of the room. I always thought it's the fluid that enables the entire room. So think of a spaceship. There's like a shiny orb in the middle of it. That's the control center. And that's how most people think of AI. I thought it's the invisible fluid running through the entire ship, making it work. And that's exactly what it has become now.
I agree with that, because there was the AI hype cycle was in a couple of years gone very differently, right? Where before it was like, there's no point doing anything as a rapper, and it's all in the LLM, and there's like all so many different opinions, right?
Yeah.
And over time, eventually, it's going to be like how we consider like the internet, right? It's just like it's just a tool that people use, rather than each thing being like, you wouldn't say like an internet empowered app, right? You just assume it, right?
Yes.
But obviously, what you were doing at that time was much more innovative and pioneering.
Yeah.
Because people didn't think like that yet.
Yeah.
AI wasn't a big thing.
Yeah.
And when you were going about that, it was obviously your first venture scale business too.
Yeah.
And how was that transition from what you're doing before into this different bubble and this different way of doing things?
Huge learnings that I'm still using. I'm still learning, I'll say. But I suddenly got exposed to this wild world of possibilities where there were huge highs and huge lows. I also think that I personally also thought that there was a lot of responsibility attached to building large things, because you do end up sitting on top of very influential decision making, things that impact lives and economies for years together. And it's also the first time when I started thinking, does the entire venture scale world think that way? And sadly, the answer is no. We don't really think that way. We don't think that we're wielding responsibility. Neither funders nor, the investees, the founders, understand the extent of the responsibility it comes with. Because think about large scale and repeatability. What you're saying is there's going to be a machine that I'm building that's going to make millions of copies of something, and therefore it will be huge. Millions of copies of anything, even if it's a piece of paper, should come with some responsibility. Why are they needed? What are they going to do at scale? Are you going to deploy them everywhere? How are you going to remove those pieces of paper? Are those pieces of paper toxic? You have to ask a million questions. I think in the race to make more copies, just because it's a cool thing to do, we don't. We just get on with making the next copy. But what role does it play in the evolution of the world and the economy? I thought that's a question we should be asking more of ourselves.
One of the interesting things I'm seeing now, right, is we've done hundreds of interviews. And the challenge is, like you said, is that somebody who's at that stage, they've just raised their first round. What's going to happen is they're going to get a ton of praise, right? They're going to get some people like, oh, congratulations, well done. But that's a means to an end, right? The whole point is like, what are you going to use that money for?
Yeah.
And what impact is that going to make?
Yeah.
And the challenge is sometimes, I think this is with anything you do, right? You get the dopamine hit before you've actually done it, because you just said you're going to do it. And everyone's telling you how amazing you are.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's that responsibility. If you say you're going to do something, you've then got to work out how to actually use that money to make it happen, and try to do it, as you say, in a responsible way where you're thinking about these effects. And also, as you built going on over time, how did that venture capital and that responsibility affect you in the way you made your decisions?
It did affect me quite a bit. I think I did quite a lot of things there wrong, as it was my first venture scale. I did some things right. I was learning, and some things I definitely screwed up quite massively. I think one of the ways it impacted me, I haven't probably said it everywhere, but here, so I ended up getting mentored, running into accidentally two really famous tech founders, probably one of the most famous people in the world. If a set of 10, these would be two of those 10. Don't want to name them. They wouldn't want to be named. I found them quite by accident. They found me, both of them in Silicon Valley. And they have gone through a journey of becoming really big and famous and have made huge unicorn, multi-unicorn level companies. And I wanted to ask them, what did it feel like when it was all done? And as much as they had great achievement, they also felt that there were so many things they couldn't do right in life. They couldn't spend enough time with many people. They treated certain people badly. And I was very surprised to find that quite a lot of them were, I thought once you do it, you'll be so happy. They were not happy because the dopamine hit was over. Exactly what you said. They were, in fact, depressed. And they were finding new causes, means to go on. And they couldn't justify how they've lived the last 20 years. In fact, they were quite against living that again. I was like, here we are trying to idolize these people. And they're telling me the truth is they regret leading the path the way that they did. So that's when I decided that the way I'm going to move forward from here is live first principles. What makes sense to me, as Maya Angelou says, how do I define my personal success is the only bar I will live against. I don't care about some famous magazine. I don't care about their cover. I don't care about what LinkedIn loves. I don't care about what Twitter thinks is a darling. I just don't. What is going to be important to me is the only one I will live by. Because as hard as it will be to not be influenced around me all the time, I think when I get to 60, like these two people, I want to look back and say, you know what, I'm pretty happy with how I did the last 20 years. I'm super happy.
Oh, hello. Quick interruption to let you know a bit more about Bay HQ. We're the community for high growth Asian heritage entrepreneurs, operators, and investors in the UK. You can join us totally free at thebayhq.com/join. There you'll get our CEO structure in your inbox every week, which is content, events, and opportunities. You can also get access to our free Startup Fundamentals course by joining. Let's get back to the show. I've had the same experience with a couple, so I don't know if these are the same people or not, but I interviewed Ev Williams, so founder of Twitter, and Mark Randolph, founder of Netflix. And I just said, you have this image of them in your heads. And they were like, yeah, like I didn't spend enough time with my kids and I regretted that. The other one was saying, well, I've got so many health problems now. Yeah. Like, was it worth it?
Yeah.
And the responsibility element, for example, with Ev Williams and Twitter, is like, I did this to try and do something good, but have I actually done good?
Yeah.
And it's almost a guilt level of like, am I responsible for all the bad stuff that's happened because of Twitter? And it's something it's hard to think about because you tell somebody that at the beginning and they're like, oh, you're just saying that. But then when you get there, and then it's like, oh, you were warned many times about this, but you didn't listen. But I know that you then used your influence you had at that point to then try and help other people in your situation and other people in that industry and to try and champion like other people. So can you tell us a bit more about that too?
I do massively believe in upholding other people. I think a rising tide lifts all boats. So whoever is the cause of rising tide, me or you or someone else, we're all going to be uplifted. I massively believe in that. So I'm always championing whoever I can, whichever way I can. And a super pitch was my attempt to get women founders that are minority to pitch. I found that it was miraculously successful in the sense that hundreds of women that needed support were able to get support in some way or the other. I still continue many women founder forums that I run. Basically, I call them a place where you can't do cocktails and selfies. You only have to talk about real shit, is what I tell them. If you're going to speak 100% the truth and not hold back, like take names, speak real experiences on the full Chatham House rules, then let's do it. Otherwise, let's not do it. What's the point? And I do a lot of that for my own catharsis as well. I feel like greatly relieved when I see people around me relieved. It's like mass collective sigh of relief. And it's not just women. I also talk to a lot of young men who need mentoring in any way if they want it. Some of them ended up working with me eventually. After a couple of years of mentoring, they're now working with me. I've had people who are actually senior to me and mentored me on one aspect, seeking mentorship in a different aspect. Like someone I'd always looked up to for corporate structuring and given me advice had recently come to me about parenting. They're struggling with one of their teenage kids. Now, Miley's super small, hotty teenage. But they wanted to know, what do I think? I don't know. For some reason, he thought it'd be wise enough to give me good advice, even his wife. I think I was a hard teenager for my parents. So I actually understood why his daughter is undergoing the things that he thinks she's doing. And I was able to share. So I try to give back in any way I can. It's really hard given my schedule, but even if I have 5 seconds, I will respond to that message, point them to the right person, do what I can, 100%. And that's probably a little bit of the spiritual religious aspect. I think that being of service is the most valuable time spent in life. I actually grew up in a very religious household. My grandmother was proper Vaishnava, like in her side of the house, I can't believe I'm saying it, we could not bring onion, garlic, or any non-vegetarian food. Whereas my mom, dad, and everybody ate everything. I was allowed to eat everything. but she was allowed to coexist like that, and it was perfectly fine. And then my mom taught in Khalsa for all her life, took an early retirement a few years ago. And so she took me to shoe service when I was, 4 years old. So she would say, being able to help someone, look after their shoes or give them water or walk with them in a procession and give them food is the biggest service you can do, which comes from the Sikh religion and their culture. And then I went to a Catholic school where we did lots of service and charity and things like that. And then I eventually ended up in Sri Aurobindo Ashram, whose basically my entire education was more or less there. And the last 12 to 14 years, I've been with Isha Foundation. So to be honest, I've spent quite a lot of time in monasteries near Ladakh and stuff. So for me, the most important thing in life is to be of service. I don't think you can lead a more valuable life. You cannot, if you have 5 seconds in life and you've spent that 5 seconds in service of someone, what we call upasana in Hindi or vipassana in Buddhism, if you're actually able to do that, you could not have found a better 5 seconds in life. So I always give it my best at all times.
And I'm sure there's going to be many people listening to this as well who personally know of things you've done for them too. And it's a whole element, I think, where you create ripples, right? Because of the people you've helped, they then help other people who help other people, and it just...
Yeah.
You just spark.
Yeah,
exactly.
So Mother Teresa talks about it a lot. So when I was 6 years old on my birthday, my mom said it was a weekend. So she said we can either have a nice party all day or we can just have party in the evening. But in the morning, we can do something special. And I was like, what is it? And she said, I'll take you with me to Missionaries of Charity, very close to my house in Kolkata. And you can volunteer with them. And I was like, what does that mean? And she was like, come with me. So I went and we distributed them food and spent the whole day with them doing things with the sisters. And on my way back, they gave me a little locket to wear, Sister Georgina, who's Mother Teresa's right hand. And it's basically a candle that's lit. And I was 6 and it was my birthday. So she put it on my neck and she said, now you're a candle. Do you know what's the best thing you can do? I was like, what? She's like, light other candles. And I went back every year. And from that point onward, I found the birthday parties to be super boring. I just wanted to be there. That's how my life of volunteering started. So a lot of thanks to my mom and my grandmother, who are both extremely spiritual, pious women. But they introduced me to this concept. My mom's a scientist as well. Like, she's very successful professionally, although my grandmother's a housewife with 7 children. They're 2 different people. But at their core, they taught me that if you can be of service, they don't even call it help. Like, help is also like a superior word. It's like, for them, it's like help is like, oh, I'm so big, I'm going to help you. They think of it as service. So if someone comes up to you and you can be of service, in my family, that's the highest 10 minutes of your life, regardless of what else you could have done in that 10 minutes. So I think anyone who's ever come up to me, if they found that I had the opportunity, I will help them, no question.
So with what you're building today, right, that's going to help so many people. It's going to have such a huge impact. Where did that idea come from? Where did Samudra Oceans come from?
You know, it's insane that it actually came from my childhood and I didn't know it all my life. Like, subconscious memories live under your skin and you don't know it. So I spent my entire life fighting with the concept that I would not do anything my parents did. I was like, oh, I don't want to do this boring stuff. But my mom's a marine botanist and she spent an outstanding amount of time doing sampling with me even when I was 3 years old. And I've learned things about the ocean in a very scientific way since I think even before I went to school, I knew enough about it. Never thought much of it because it was table stakes in my house. If you have lunch or dinner at my house, you'll find that a conversation about conservation is not a special topic. This is our default topic. This is way before all this became cool, yeah? Like all our lives. I never thought it'd be a profession. And I went to Bora Bora quite a few years ago. Until that point, I didn't know how to swim. And I actually told my partner at the time that I think I don't know how to enjoy this holiday because you're all doing these amazing things and I don't know how to do this. And he said, you know what, I'll teach you how to go underwater completely, like immerse yourself, like dive, and tell me how you feel. I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. And that was a moment I'll never forget. I went completely underwater and I just knew in that moment that I have to do something with the ocean, whatever that takes. And I have to figure out how I can help the ocean and I have to figure out how the ocean can help us. There was no doubt in my head. It was experiential. It was like, it was in my body. It wasn't about success or failure anymore. It's just what I wanted to do. Like, if this doesn't work, I'll do another form of it. Like, there's no question of quitting. This is it. So over the years, I found various ways to approach it. And then COVID happened, which is basically a time when you're forced to deal with your thoughts, like, where will you go? It's you and your thoughts in your closed house. And I was also pregnant with my daughter, and I was quite severely ill. I had a very critical pregnancy. So it was hell. I had to sometimes inject myself up to 20 times a day. It was really crazy. Every hour I was injecting. It was just mad. And so I couldn't work, couldn't eat. It was just 9 months. I was just, yeah. And I was thinking, when this child comes into this world, what is it we can do for her? And I know the usual thoughts came, okay, get a bigger house, get a bigger car, get a backyard, move out to the suburb, But the more I read about the climate crisis, I was like, none of that will matter. If you can't go out into the garden, if the food belt shifts, and the way it is going, the temperature change, the cost of living crisis, none of this will matter. And I thought the best thing I can do for her and for children her age and everybody else is leave a better world, not just a bigger house, because that's not going to help any of them anymore. And that's how Samudra came, which is a combination of personal passion and commitment, living a life of service for other humans, combined with the fact that I've always known about the ocean and the biology of it, and then combined with the fact that I'm an engineer, so I always like to make solutions. So, yeah.
So for people who don't know what it does, tell us, what does Samudra Oceans do?
So Samudra is Sanskrit for oceans. So in a way, oceans or oceans, yeah. So what we do at Samudra is basically we take very underutilized marine assets like seabeds that are not used or not in very useful areas, which is most of this planet. And we then transform them into very high value assets by starting to deploy them with something that produces cash flow every year and exponentially higher. And what we deploy there is large scale robotics, very simple robotics, not rocket science, but new FOAK, first of its kind. We deploy it, it sits slightly underwater and it grows commercial varieties of seaweed, but it can also grow all kinds of multi-trophic aquaculture. You can look at different kinds of bivalves, crustaceans, wherever. The idea is to turn that asset into high yield asset. So every year you have an income. And once we are able to do it for a couple of years, we then start looking to work with project financiers or asset managers who then look to finance it or buy off the cash flow of the asset for next 10 to 20 years. So a bit like an agricultural model, but we took it to the ocean. It is a wildly different universe than anything I've ever seen. It's also an FOAK. There's literally no precedent. But God, do I love it. Absolutely, 100%. Turning a piece of seabed into something that absorbs carbon, produces jobs for a tier 3 town, and increases the value of the asset, and actually produces returns for the financiers. I just couldn't have asked for a better solution to work on in my life, honestly.
And you mentioned there as well, and we're talking about how what you're building today, it's not just helping the planet, it's also a scalable business that people should invest in, not just because they want to do good, but because it makes financial sense too.
Yeah.
And can you talk about how did you come up with a business model? How did it all start to piece together so you could showcase that to investors that, look, yes, you're going to do good, but we can actually make you money too?
Yeah. Actually, funnily enough, unlike many propositions who pivot, we only expanded our proposition over time so we started out by saying, you know what, we'll make monitoring robotics that will go and monitor your farm, and therefore you will save a lot of CapEx and OpEx in boat trips and things like that. And then we were like, why don't we automate the whole piece? And then we were like, if we're going to automate the entire farm, we might as well own the asset because we're really fast, high speed. So we will become your asset managers. Then we were like, if we've done it for one asset, why don't we do it for 10 assets? Isn't that what the BlackRocks of the world do? Let's do more assets. So we just did that. And in this journey, if you see, we're not talking of just product. We're talking of creating an entire systems change. So product requires iteration. Creating system change is 4 pillars. You have institutional, you have financial, you have technological, and you have social, and you have to work with all of them. So it helped that the company had quite a lot of the skill sets. The tech is fine. I mean, I'm an engineer, my co-founder Alex, everybody else, that's fine. So working on all of those pillars required a lot of learning. So they were actual learning. How do you work with these institutions? But I would say whenever you're on such a steep learning curve, the most important thing you need to learn is about yourself. Learning a lot is not hard if you're a more than average smart person, which I think I am, most people are, or in my company. But it's how can you learn if you're full of yourself? If you don't empty, there is nothing new that you can download. So honestly, it has been an exercise in dismantling the ego, which is great. The part of me that's spiritual is loving it because I fail a million times and then I have to dismantle my ego and learn and then solve. I love that. And that's also almost like a hiring policy for us. So every single company in Samudra, it's like, how low ego can you be as a person? There's a huge opportunity here to ride on learning, like use knowledge as a fuel to get high. Honestly, it's so much, but it's not going to happen if you think you know everything. There is just no way. If you're ready to say to yourself, you know what? Maybe I don't know. Even in things that you think you've always known, then Samudra is the right place for you because there's so much to learn. And I have to say that it has been great. The people that have joined are like that. Absolutely. Every single person in my company, I mean, wow. Sometimes I'm like, well, if this doesn't work, you start something and I'll join you. I'll be your employee. They're so good. And they have very low ego. There is no way to work in our company with high ego because we're learning every day. You can't learn if you have high ego. It's just not possible.
You mentioned what you're doing is so innovative, right? How do you find the right people to join the team? And like you said, okay, you're looking for low ego.
Yeah.
But to try and find those people who have this kind of traits that you think is
really difficult. Yeah. It's an intersection of two Venn diagrams. For instance, a funny thing is most of my engineers, they're also good sailors or divers. They had to be because we didn't have enough capital to have two different teams to test the tech. Like these guys will go test. They are like Navy SEALs and you guys will just build it in a lab. I was like, no, I have the budget for 3 people. So how are we going to do it? So every engineer who had to apply was a trained diver or sailor, probably both. My co-founder, Alex, is near pro swimmer and cold water diver. Basically, the same person who was in the lab got on a ship with me and went and then did it. So strange mix of skill sets. Similarly, lots of our salespeople are people who worked in policy before. So they know how to work with governments and public stakeholders to work on long-term carbon offsets or offshore wind kind of deals. Basically, you're not looking at a very straightforward profile. Every single profile is mixed with something else. At the very least, if it's a profile that is not mixed with another Venn diagram, then the way I find them is I'm like, I'll personally help you ramp up, give you the books, give you the URLs. I'll sit with you, we'll brainstorm. I'll introduce you to my contacts and give you hour-long sessions with them, whatever. So for very rare instances when the person's very willing and they don't have an intersection of the skill sets, the way I work with them is like, I'll give you all the training, I'll give you all the books, I'll work with you, but I need you to have a low ego. If you start by saying, I know stuff, all this effort is wasted. You're not going to learn. And I've seen that when people commit to it, they do it. It's a hard exercise. There are times when, yes, they falter. But 1 or 2 people I invested time in have actually picked up. So, yeah.
As you said, you're 5th company now, right? So you're going to have made lots of learnings from all the different companies that you then took into Samudra as well.
Yeah.
So what do you think you've done differently this time in terms of whether it's hiring or whether it's anything? What do you think has been the biggest change in how you built this one based on all the previous learnings you had?
The first one is about opportunities. Say no when it doesn't make sense. As a founder, you like to see all glittery things and say yes. I think the biggest trick is to say no. It's hard because it sometimes means turning down money on the table. But that will give you the power to select the right things. Saying no. The second thing is people in every way, from investors to founding team to employee to suppliers. Man, I cannot overstate the importance of people. It's all about people. You can work around a contract. You can work around a shortfall in your capital. You can work around salary. You can work around everything if you have the right people. And if you don't, you can have millions in your bank account. It won't work. So focusing on the right fit. And just getting good people. Oh my God, I just cannot imagine having an Einstein who's an asshole. I don't care. I'm like, you can't be in it. Sorry, it doesn't work for me. You could be super brilliant, but thank you. People. And that means also investors, by the way, because they're my team. My investors are incredible this time. Oh my God, they're like an extended team. We have 100% transparent communications. I've actually turned on 2 term sheets that were on the table because our vision didn't align. And then I've run after a few people who wouldn't even give me a meeting because I was like, it's not even just about the money. I really think you'd be great. And they are great. So it's all about people in every way. In every way, wherever you're engaging with the person, whatever is the product or the financial incentive attached to it, I would over-index on the person. The third thing is what I learned about myself. I think that I burn myself out very quickly and a lot. I've done that frequently. I think I'm pacing myself now. Even when my body and my mind refuse to listen to me that I'm tired, I take people's cue. If they see me and they say 3 days in a row, Joy, you're looking tired. Or if I'm falling sick, which is usually an indicator of your body trying to tell you something, I do take time out. I never did before, but I do now because it's a long game. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I don't want to burn out or reach the end and say what I found those two founders say, like, was my health worth my life? I don't want to be that person. So I definitely pace myself out. And it's a hard journey because founders, like, we don't like to stop. Like, even if I take 2 hours out, something in my brain is like, you didn't respond to this email. You could have done this. But I force myself and I'm like, no, you're walking in nature for 2 hours. The whole world can go. It doesn't matter. So those are the three things I think I do very differently. So the last thing has really changed me as a person and how I value others' times as well. But the first two have resulted in, I would say, an even better company than I've built before.
So I love the first one. This is what I'm trying to do quite aggressively now myself, where, because the challenge of community, right, is that it means so many different things to different people. And this, you mentioned earlier, for me, this kind of grew out of a grief journey as well.
Yeah.
So then what happens then is that everything I do is tied to that legacy. So I'm like, if I upset anybody, then I'm a bad person. And that creates a huge amount of mess, because then if I say yes to everything, what I then do is under-deliver on everything.
Yeah.
Or I just feel guilty or just burn out, like you said.
Yes.
So I think it's a hard one for people to accept. And hopefully people listening to this too, it's not just about what opportunities you turn down, but it's also, I think, like I said, the understanding of when other people turn you down.
Yeah.
It's not because you're a bad person or they hate you or anything like that.
Of course, many things are going around. I think that people have, maybe they're ill, maybe there's a bigger priority in house, maybe they're going through a fight with their partner, maybe they're just recovering from a flu. You never know. It's not about you. You can't go to every event, and not everyone can come to all your events, no matter how important they are. You cannot attend every interview, every podcast, every journalist request, and you just simply cannot do everything in the company and be also present in everywhere. No. I think a bit of this is also coming from the Zen part of me. I think we have, especially founders, as Farnham Street will say, we are very broken people, which is why we choose such a sadistic life for ourselves. It's because we have somehow, which a lot of founders are immigrants, right? We have equated hard work and performance equal to my worth. Therefore, I should be loved. But actually, they have nothing to do with you being loved. A child is born, they barely do anything. They make demands most of the time. Do we not love them? They're performing nothing. You love a child. You love dead people. If someone you really love is dead, you still love them. What are they doing for you? Nothing. If someone's in coma and doing nothing in the world, do they not deserve love? Are you going to say that's just somebody you should kick because it's just on a coma? I think performance and hard work are separate things. They're aspirations to create something. But our worth as a person and to be loved has nothing to do with that. We all deserve to be loved the moment we are born, because you pick up a little child, it deserves love, even if it has never performed in life. So I think we have to really internalize that. Most founders are deeply broken people who have come from either personal or professional backgrounds that has taught them that if you work really hard and you perform well, suddenly you're going to be worth a lot of love and respect. You're worth a lot of love and respect anyway. You don't have to do all of that to get it. That's a separate track. And if you come from that place of self-worth and seeing that in others, regardless of their performance, then you will be okay to say no, and you'll be okay to accept your failures. You're not a bad person. It has nothing to do with that. And you'll be okay to see others' failures as well.
I think you mentioned it even earlier as well about how the magazine cover, all that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to, so like some founders, they're coming from a position of needing to prove themselves.
Yeah.
But not to themselves, to other people.
Yeah.
They need other people to think they're doing something.
External validation.
And
because everybody wants to be on the cover of TechCrunch. This is the only way. You're great.
But as you said, there's so many people who've been on that journey, done so well, and aren't happy.
No.
So, like you said, it's got to be that separation between the professional success. Do that because you enjoy it or because you really care about whatever problem you're trying to solve. but don't do that to make you happy, because you might be down 25 years, 20 years down the line and
exactly. It cannot be a source of happiness. The source is not outside. You're just chasing a completely wrong thing if it's outside. It's just futile. It's like a dog chasing its tail. You're never going to get there. In fact, it's the reverse. If you find it inside you, then everything you do becomes an expression of joy. It's easier said than done. I recognize that.
Is the pun intended there?
Yeah, exactly, right? Oh, it totally did. I think I was that person until my mid-20s, as I said, and then I found spirituality in a big way. And I really tried to find happiness within myself without not as a pursuit, like I have to find happiness, where is it? Not like that. But there are certain situations you create, and happiness is like the flower that blooms if the rest of it is right. So if you plant seeds, there's no way for you to yank out the flower from the soil. You just got to water it, nurture it, give it sunlight, and wait. So if you create the right conditions, happiness sprouts. People pursue happiness as a pursuit. I'm going to yank it out of the soil. This flower will be in my hand. No. It's going to come when everything else is right. And I think the few things that make that is physical fitness, if you're not sick in any way or worried about it. If you have a good conscience and you sleep well, it's your actions, how intentional and mindful are you about them? And then your mental state. Are you constantly creating a situation of stress for yourself, which is part of this not being able to say no kind of thing? If you have all of these conditions and you have some good harmonious relationships, you've chosen how to engage with people, happiness just sprouts because the rest of the conditions are there and you feel like, oh, I'm happy. But if you pursue it as an end goal, that's not a thing. And I think once you are like that, you are able to do everything in a much more sustained way. I think it gives you enormous energy. A lot of people ask me like, oh, you're so high energy. I barely even drink coffee. I've never done any substances in my entire life, believe it or not. And most of the time I'm vegan. So I don't even, I can't take in much sugar because I'm diabetic. So my source of energy is nothing. It is being able to find that happiness within myself. And it doesn't have anything to do with the external world. I think there's lots of crap that has happened to me, has happened to a lot of immigrant founders. Some of it like epic level shit, like the stuff of novels. What can I say? But I refuse to choose that to be my story. I still choose happiness above everything else. And that's the source of everything I do.
Just before we dive into quick-fire questions, what we're doing now is we're over 200 episodes in. So if we come back on in 2 years' time, 200 episodes in, and where would you have liked to have seen Samudra Oceans get to? What service would you have liked to be happy? Because obviously we mentioned this, like it's not going to be happiness from whatever Samudra Oceans does.
Yeah.
But you obviously got some targets in mind of where you hope you've been able to make this level of difference to other people. Yeah.
So Samudra is an expression of my happiness, not the source, as is everything in my life. The source is here, but everything is an expression. And that's why I do it so joyfully and relentlessly and with high energy, because I'm already super happy and excited. And this is just how I'm expressing it, So the way I want this expression to unfold in the next couple of years, I think three things. One is we should have grown an outstanding amount of biomass in the ocean so that we've taken out actual carbon that can be measured. So I'm not just saying nice stuff. There's an actual number attached to the megatons of carbon we've taken out. That would be a real dent in the climate crisis that we would have created and solved it to some extent. And the second would be the people who work with me, on an average, are they always very happy. And I don't think that'll only happen by giving them a fridge full of free food like I used to see in my Silicon Valley days working in the top tech companies. I think it's also going to come from everything else. Do they feel free? Do they feel like their mistakes are okay? Do they feel appreciated? Do they feel seen and heard and recognized? If I'm able to create a company at all times that does that, mostly for everybody, that would be great, because they're as much a product of the company as everything else is. You know what? 60% of people who've worked with me in co-founding teams in the last 12 years went on to become founders themselves. So they have then set the culture of so many companies, right? So for me, what I set for those people is important. And the third thing would be my personal journey. That's important to me. In 2 years, am I able to look back upon what I did and see that I've given it my best? Still not burn bridges or anything like that to move fast, not hurt people, still managed to do that in an intentional way and still been very present for my daughter and showed up for myself and my own physical and mental health and the people who are closest to me that I care for. Have I managed to do that? And allowed myself to make mistakes without being too harsh, because all of this is a full plate. There are times I absolutely screw up, like I forget a really big thing that I should have done for my mom or some such thing. And I'm moving to a place where I don't want to beat myself up for it because I have so much on my plate. I missed it. So what? Forgiving myself. The same compassion I allow for others. If I'm able to do all of these three, I think the result would be phenomenal success for myself and company, regardless of what the world considers success.
So hopefully in 2 years' time, we'll come back and we'll play that back and see how you did.
This is so great. I love that. I love that, like a letter to myself in future. Okay, can I say something to myself for the future? Just so, because you said you're going to play it back, so that would be really interesting. I'd like to tell this to myself. Joy, dream bigger and don't be afraid. Tell yourself the right stories to go bigger and know that you can do it. You got it.
Okay, so good note for quick fire questions now.
Okay.
So, as you mentioned before about how much you work with so many incredible people, right? So, who are 3 Asians in Britain that you think are doing incredible work? And would you love to shout them out?
Yeah, definitely. So I would mention Nina Joka. I think she's amazing. She's doing nonprofits, and she started at an age when most people don't even think of starting a company, and she decided to go ahead and do it post-retirement, and she's killing it. I think she's amazing. I think the other Asian that you should know about is Suraj Rajan. Just thought of him while coming up with this. So he's a Cityoid snowflake and one of my repeat investors, and I think might be one of the kindest men I have known in my life. Like such a holistic perspective. Even when I failed in one of the ventures he's invested in, he's still invested in my next one because he's supporting me. Incredible person. I think the third person you may remember for already is Karishma. Karishma Gupta. She's working on Eslando, circular fashion, and it is in the world of sustainability. So I absolutely love her. I think her dry is phenomenal. She's just like unstoppable. Yeah.
Awesome. So if you want to find out more about you, what you're building, where do they go to?
If you want to find out more about what we're doing, please go to samudraoceans.com.
And so I know the audience listening right now could help you with.
Don't think of climate tech as philanthropy or a trend. It's the future of the world. It's the next industrial revolution as we run out of resources. Everything that we build, from data centers to the food that you eat to the clothes that you wear, are changing. So this is the time of the world when we are building the infrastructure for the rest, maybe next 500 years. It's a time to participate in these horizontal infrastructures. So don't hold back because you heard the word climate attached to it. It's probably an opportunity, not a philanthropy.
So thanks so much for coming on. Any final words?
Thank you for having me. I love what you guys are doing. The fact that you've gone on for 240 to 50 plus episodes, highlighting incredible founders. This is also a ripple effect of a system. When you highlight them, they go back and highlight others like we're directly doing, but also it just creates this camaraderie and community that is so lovely and warm. I get such a great vibe just being in your studio. So thank you very much for creating this.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.